when Canadians find it hard to feed themselves and pay bills, the Prime Minister disbursed $200 million to the Asia Investment Bank. Now, this bank's head of communications has revealed through her resignation that the bank is controlled by Beijing in order to strengthen the Chinese empire throughout the world with Canadian taxpayer money. Will the Prime Minister claw this money back for Canadians? And will he redisperse it to Canadians? The Honourable Minister for Tourism. Mr. Speaker, like the Deputy Prime Minister stated earlier today, in response to this question, the Government of Canada will immediately put an end to all activities, government activities in the banks, and she's asked the Department of Finance to study allegations made and Canada's position with the Asia Investment Bank. The Government of Canada will discuss this matter with its allies and partners that are members of the bank. The investigation will have to happen rapidly, and we will publish the results.
Conservatives told the Prime Minister that while Canadians couldn't pay for groceries, he had no business sending over $200 million tax dollars to the Beijing-controlled Asian Infrastructure Bank to fund pipelines and roads and bridges over there. Now we've been proven right by the head of communications for that very bank, who's resigned, saying that it's dominated by the Communist Party and being used to build Beijing's empire around the world. The government says it's going to cease operations now, but the question is, where is the $200 million of Canadians' money that he gave that bank?
The Honourable Minister.
As the Deputy Prime Minister said earlier today in response to this matter, the Government of Canada will immediately halt all government-led activity at the bank, and she has instructed the Department of Finance to lead an immediate review of the allegations raised and of Canada's involvement at the AIIB. The Canadian government will also be discussing this issue with our allies and partners who are members of the bank. The review announced today is to be undertaken expeditiously. No outcome is being ruled out following its completion.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That wasn't the question. Conservatives agreed with Japan and the United States that refused to give money to the Beijing-controlled Asian Infrastructure Bank. We pleaded with the Prime Minister not to throw our money away on this enterprise that was designed to expand Beijing's empire around the world, building infrastructure in other countries. But 200 million Canadian tax dollars has gone into this bank. So I will ask for a third time. Where is our money, and how will we get it back?
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to repeat that the Government of Canada has halted all activities, all government-led activities at the AIIB, and our government has instructed the Department of Finance to lead an immediate review of the allegations to end the raise of Canada's involvement at the AIIB. Mr. Speaker, this review is to be done expeditiously, and no outcome has been taken off the table.
To demonstrate once again his admiration for the basic dictatorship of the Beijing regime, the Prime Minister wanted to contribute himself to its expansion in 2016 by announcing an amount of $250 million to the Asian Investment Bank. We warned the Prime Minister. We saw that there was a trap. The Conservatives saw the trap. One of the bank's leaders has now stated that it was in fact run by the Communist Party in Beijing. Canadians should not have to pay $250 million for the expansion of the Beijing regime. When will the Prime Minister get our money back? The Honourable Minister for Tourism. Mr. Speaker, like the Deputy Prime Minister stated yesterday, in answer to this question, the Government of Canada will immediately put an end to all of its activities with the Asian Investment Bank. And she asked the Department of Finance to carry out an investigation in Canada's participation with the AIIB. We also talk on the matter with our allies. The investigation announced yesterday has to be done as rapidly as possible. No result has been excluded as of yet.
Capel.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal-appointed board member on the Asian Infrastructure Bank just resigned, calling it a cesspool and saying that it was controlled by, quote, the Communist Party crowd who operate like a secret police. Who could have seen this coming? Who could have predicted that a bank structured to give Beijing effective control would use the bank to expand the power and influence of the communist regime in Beijing? Who could have possibly seen that coming? Conservatives, that's who. We warned these liberals not to put tax dollars into the scam of a bank. So when are they getting our money back?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Speaker, as the Deputy Prime Minister said yesterday, and as I said in this House yesterday, related to this matter, the Government of Canada will immediately halt all government-led activity at the bank, and she has instructed the Department of Finance to lead an immediate review of the allegations raised and of Canada's involvement at the AIIB. The Canadian government will also be discussing this issue with our allies and partners who are members of the bank. The review is to be undertaken expeditiously. No outcome is being ruled out following this investigation.
For Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, nobody likes an I told you so, except for everyone who told you so. It wasn't just conservatives, it was our major security partners like Japan and the United States and foreign affairs experts who all said the same thing, that the communist regime would use the bank to bully developing countries and expand its power and influence. This bank built railways and ports with taxpayers' dollars while Canadians here at home are struggling just to pay the bills. So now that the con has been exposed, will they do the right thing and get Canadians their tax dollars back?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, same question, same answer as we said yesterday in this House. And as the Deputy Prime Minister has been very clear, we have ceased all government-led activities with the AIIB. We have asked Finance to conduct an immediate investigation into the activities of the bank. This investigation is to be undertaken expeditiously, and no outcome is being ruled out from this outcome.
Madam Speaker, the resignation of a Canadian executive from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank confirms what we've long been saying. The bank is a tool of the Chinese Communist Party to spread its authoritarian model of governance throughout the Indo-Pacific region. The bank has said it's willing to lend to Myanmar's military junta, who have been targeting the Rohingya minority, and there are suggestions it is willing to resume lending to Russia. What more proof does the government need to conclude that this bank runs contrary to Canada's interests and values?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Tourism and Assistant Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as the member opposite knows, the Government of Canada has halted all government-led activity at the bank, and the Minister of Finance has instructed the Department of Finance to lead an immediate review of Canada's involvement. The Canadian government is currently discussing this issue with its allies and partners that are also members of the bank. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Madam Speaker, just a couple of years ago, Global Affairs Canada advised the government that the bank is an example of how Beijing, quote, promotes perspectives on governance, economic security, and human rights that diverge in fundamental ways from Canada's, end quote. And just 2 years ago, the Finance Committee recommended the government withdraw from the bank. Former Solicitor General and Liberal Finance Chair Wayne Easter said the recommendation should serve as a wake-up and smell the roses moment for the government. So when will the Prime Minister heed the advice of Global Affairs Canada, heed the advice of senior Liberals, and withdraw Canada from the bank?
Yes. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And as I said, the Government of Canada has indeed put an end to all activities of the government within the bank, and the Minister has tasked the Finance Minister with reviewing Canada's participation. Madam Speaker, the Government of Canada is also discussing this issue with our allies and partners that are members of the bank.
6 years ago, the Liberal government had plenty of praise for the Asian Infrastructure Bank. The Prime Minister said joining was, quote, good sense for Canadian know-how and for Canadians abroad. His former Finance Minister was quoted saying he was pleased with Canada's gift of tax dollars and added that the bank was independent of any government. Now that the most senior Canadian at the Beijing bank has quit, stating the bank is dominated by Communist Party members and that Canadian interests are not served by the AIIB. 6 years, $200 million later, Conservatives told them so, Madam Speaker. When are taxpayers getting their money back?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, the Finance Minister has tasked the department with a full review of Canada's participation, and our government has ended all activities of the government within that bank. Thank you.